Hey SEOs and content marketers, say goodbye to crazy spreadsheet mashups and experience unprecedented connectivity between your SEO planning and reporting data. Introducing Audience Key, technology for keyword mapping, content brief automation, and rank tracking that form an SEO strategy system providing unparalleled feedback loops between planning, reporting, and optimization activities. Put your time and energy into strategy, not data upkeep. Visit audiencekey.com and apply for a free trial today. Hey everyone, welcome to Webcology here on WMR.fm. It's the 2nd of November, 2023. This is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media and Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls. And this week we'd have been talking about artificial intelligence. We'd be talking about Google. We'd be talking about machine learning being used to confirm how helpful or not helpful a page is. A whole bunch of stuff we'd be talking about, but something kind of came up. An article was published in The Verge yesterday on November 1st, 2023 by a man of Chicago, Lewis. And it was an indictment of SEO in many, many ways. It called us the people who ruined the internet. Kristine, you've had a lengthy reply that I think a lot of people really resonate with a lot of people, except it didn't resonate with editor-in-chief Nilay Patel, who cut your comment, which they had initially published. Well, what was that? What happened there?
Well, to be fair, it was the moderators. I don't know that he had anything to say about it, but apparently, and I have posted a Medium article on this. You can find it on my LinkedIn. I linked to it. Showing the comment and showing that what they said, but apparently I violated community guidelines by complaining about it being clickbait or that it isn't journalism. And they understand that no matter how well written or well meaning that comment, it was not putting my best foot forward on what I want to say. So reposting it would not get me into their good graces. Actually, I only reposted it because it disappeared in front of my face and they didn't tell me they deleted it, so I just thought something happened.
Well, I think it's a good thing that you actually co-host a very well listened to web marketing podcast that likely has a higher listenership per episode than the vast majority of Verge articles. What exactly did you say in your reply?
It's a little long to read. People can find it on LinkedIn and Medium, but generally, basically what I was doing was saying that for people who haven't read the article is quite derogatory about SEOs, the industry, but using several people that were actually don't even do this anymore, and going back to the early 2000s to trash what SEOs do, even though mostly what they're talking about is affiliate marketing, which does use SEO, but it's a bit different than regular traditional SEO. And SEO has matured a lot. We basically work for corporations and companies, and we're not making millions of dollars off of porn, pharmaceuticals, or casinos, which is what the original joke was about the hardest things to rank in were the PPC of search. So they had not kind things to say about Danny Sullivan, particularly. Danny Sullivan has written a response for people who want to find it. I listed his response in my Medium article. Mm-hmm. And basically it was and I don't know this for sure because I haven't talked to the journalist, but it was like she had an agenda before she went into the article. And then she just tried to meet it because she was trying to get to the idea that Google's worse now. But for those that don't know, the title of the article is The People Who Ruin the Internet. That is the title of the article. And as the public begins to believe Google isn't as useful anymore, what happens to the cottage industry of search engine optimization experts who struck content oil and smeared it all over the web? Well, they find a new way to get rich and they keep the party going.
Now, the party that she's referring to, is this like the infamous alligator party she writes about in the next couple of paragraphs?
I think in general she's talking about just the money that was involved way back then. Although some people still make it like gaming and stuff, but it's not as common. And there was supposedly a rooftop alligator party, if you're seeing these memes go around and wonder why. that had an alligator at it with its mouth taped, and it was apparently a fairly small event. A couple of the people she mentioned I've never heard of, and nobody I know of has heard of, so I'm not sure what event it was. I have heard it was an affiliate marketing event, not a
Al-
regular like SEO conference event.
Although one of the people she did mention, we've all heard of. He's
Yes.
actually the owner of this network, SE Guru Darren Babin, former host of the SEO Rockstars. He was at this party, and he's quoted quite liberally in the article.
And she was very nice about Darren. So she was not.
Although he is kind of painted as a bad guy, but a really charming bad guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she did call them pirates. So apparently SEOs are pirates working in
Darren
a
did own a
cottage.
sailboat once.
He
That is
did.
true. He
He
owned a
did.
sailboat
And
once.
he did.
Yep.
And Darren definitely was in the early days where I think a lot of SEO now sprung out of affiliate marketing back then. But, I walked into a bar once at a conference in 2000, I think it was five or six. At a conference, I walk in and I order a drink, and they say, "Oh, it's paid for." And I don't know anybody yet. This is when I had first met you, like around that time, and first getting into search. So I knew very few people. And I said, "Who would pay for my drink?" And they pointed at this guy. And I said, "Oh, what? Okay, thank you." And I went over to talk to him. And apparently he bought drinks for every single person who walked into the bar. It was an SEO event. And it was Frank Watson.
Oh,
And yeah, and that's how I met Frank Watson. Was I went over and thanked him for the drink. So in the early days, there were a lot of people SEO, like traditional SEO now, a lot of it sprang out of the affiliate marketing then, where people could make a lot of money off of exploiting the search engines
although again,
flaws.
100%, Frank was making his money on forex, foreign exchange. At that
Oh,
time,
okay,
he
okay,
was
I
making
didn't
money
know
as an
that.
SEO, but he was facilitating forex.
Okay, I didn't know that, but generally speaking, like there are a lot of those times you go somewhere and like people threw tire events out of their pocket, probably for a good tax write-up. But it was easy back then, and Google didn't even like start writing these rules until when was the Florida update? The first big was
November
2000.
2003.
Yeah, so these people were like late 90s, early 2000s, and basically all they were doing is getting their websites to rank well and making money off of the people that would pay them to get traffic to them. So
And
it's not like it was a bad thing.
a quick note about that time. For the most part, there was no Google. It didn't
No,
exist.
there were rules
Google
back
comes
then.
on the scene in 2001, and it really comes on the scene 2001. But before that, we had AltaVista, we had Lycos, we had
Yahoo,
InfoSeek,
Yahoo.
we had the directory
Yeah,
structure of Yahoo, which itself wasn't actually a search engine. It was a web directory, but it searched through its directory index and in its own way found it didn't crawl the web. You fed Yahoo. Um, that was before it had its own crawler. This is again
yeah.
back before the turn of the century, so a very long time ago.
Very
And
long time
that's the
ago.
examples that Ms. Chicago
Use
was bringing up in her article.
yes,
When or Ms. Chicago Lewis, I should say, brings up in her articles, which is often kind of cool. And I got to admit, this is a really, really, really well written article. Like the
very well
writing
written.
is excellent.
Very long, but you're entertained all the way through. Too bad, just so much of it is just not true or
Not
accurate.
true. She has. I think you're right. She feels like she had an agenda going in, and then she wrote the article to fit the agenda. The way she the one who gets off worst here, who gets by far the worst treatment, and it's really, really unfair, is Danny Sullivan.
Yeah, it was unfair.
Danny, who, for people who haven't met him, can be prickly. He really can. He does not like suffering fools. He never has. I remember Danny from the very, very early days when I first met him, a wonderful, welcoming, really cool person, but he was always busy and everybody wanted a piece of him all the time. And he just didn't suffer fools gladly. Why should he? Honest to goodness, why
True.
should he? He's writing about and popularizing the most cutting edge thing at the time, something that can sort the chaos of the internet and do it really effectively. Um, he moved on to Google after
Yeah.
starting Search Engine Watch, which
Oh, search
was
engine
the
land. Oh,
No,
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 you're right.
Search Engine
You're right. You're
Watch.
right. Yeah. You're right.
And that was the predecessor of everything.
Yes.
That is the granddaddy publication. I mean, I'm glad that she notes Barry Schwartz and the Trade Rag Search Engine Roundtable.
I know she called, for anyone who doesn't, anyone wants to get the entire gist of this article in one sentence, calling Barry Schwartz trade rag, Search Engine Roundtable trade rag. Like
Indeed.
rag. Like
Search
Barry
Engine
actually has
Roundtable.
contacts at Google that he gets those
Well, and also
confirmations
Search
from.
Engine Roundtable is really is one of the most visited websites, regularly visited websites on the internet today, bar none.
Yes, because Barry doesn't put opinion in it. He just writes the fact. Well, he puts a little opinion, but he writes the facts. He gets it confirmed. He won't write about it if he can't get it confirmed. He'll say, "I can't confirm the shit," and then he posts it. And he posts many articles a day. So to call it a trade rag is just to give you the entire feeling of this entire article. If you don't want to read the 8,000 words that are in there,
She
so
did note he was prolific.
she
She
did,
did
and
say he was
that's
prolific, and that
shocking.
is correct. That is factual. He is prolific.
Yes, but so this is like to give you an idea of like how she wrote about Danny. She said that and most of all, Sullivan is pissed that people think Google results have gone downhill. And then she's like, Sullivan is mad that the public and the media don't really understand what he considers to be the basic precepts of how search works, leading him to adopt a rather scolding tone online. It's like, this is how she writes about him the whole time. Like, so the idea, by the way, the idea that my comment that this is clickbait journalism and not really, standing up to journalistic ethics, I thought was pretty mild, you know. Again, it's a very entertaining read. It's just unfortunately, it's just a slam piece, and her real point, I don't disagree with, which is that Google search has gone downhill, but it's not because of SEOs. We're not the ones who ruin the internet. Oh, by the way, I want to mention real quick, Bill Hartzer, if you're in the industry, is selling T-shirts about being the people that ruin the internet. They're really cute, and $1 of everything you buy will go to Anton Schultz rescue effort for the animals in Ukraine.
Indeed, and we're gonna mention that a little bit later again.
Yeah.
But it's good that you got that in early. We get it in early. We get it in often.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to make sure people knew that was there. So yeah, so the whole thing is basically the premise is Google search isn't as good as it used to be. I actually agree. We talk about that later. But is it better than it was in 2000 when these people were, making all this money on the internet? Yeah. Could you exploit it easily back then? Of course. People, but why are we angry at people who exploited the early internet to make money so they didn't have to struggle their whole lives? Like, isn't that called entrepreneurship?
Well, another thing I'd like to point out, Google isn't the internet. Google.
Oh yes, yeah,
The
exactly.
internet is a very big place. The internet is every computer on the earth networked together. Yeah. The World Wide Web is a program that runs on the internet that lets us exchange websites using the TCP/IP protocol. That's a part of the World Wide Web, but there are other protocols that allow us to exchange information. File Transfer Protocol, FTP, is an example. That is not, FTP is not the World Wide Web, although it damn well facilitates it. It works on the internet.
But yeah, I mean, so like one of her comments was talking about like search and not understanding that Google's the one that makes the decisions on how it displays stuff. And she says, perhaps this is why everyone hates SEO and the people who do it for a living. The practice seems to have successfully destroyed the illusion that the internet was ever about anything other than selling stuff. So who winds up with a career in SEO? The stereotype is that a hustler, a content goblin willing to eschew rules.
I love the content goblin.
I do. Someone already bought that website.
Shit.
And good taste in exchange for eyeballs and mountains of cash. A nihilist in it for the thrills. A prankster gleeful about getting away with something. This is modern day pirate shit as close as you can get, explained Katie Lee, CADE. No one knows who that is yet. If you are Katie Lee, please contact us so we can talk to you.
We want to know who you are because we can't find you.
No, nobody knows who you are, but apparently you were a big part of this article. So, and then he said, who prepared me over the phone for what to expect in Florida based on going to this conference thing or this party, based on a decade of working in SEO. Like it said, oh, and what Lee notices at SEO conferences and SEO networking events, there's a certain arrogance. There's definitely an ego among all of them. He told me, you exceed, and now you're a genius. You've outdone Google. Like that might be true. That I won't say that there is not that vibe at some affiliate conferences. There can be, but I go to conferences since I started, and my favorite thing about conferences is how open everybody is, how much I get to learn, how much I get to share with everybody, how much they share with me, the things I learned from the black hat affiliate. Black hats are the people that violate Google's terms of service. For those who don't know, I'm not terms of service, conditions of like SEO. Like they're not doing anything illegal. They get
Oh no.
around the algorithms. But like I'm learning from them. Like some of the people that learned the most or knew the most back then, because Google told us literally absolutely nothing unless you got a little nugget from Matt Cutts somewhere along the way. You learn from them, like Greg Bozer and Oilman, and these guys that were like making these websites back then and making money, real
Yeah.
money.
And
They taught you what you needed to know.
yeah, they were wonderfully generous with their time.
Wonderfully
Yeah,
generous.
and
That's what
incidentally, Todd Friesen, Oilman, or Greg Bowser, Web Gorilla, those two especially were remarkably generous. You could buttonhole them at a conference, and these guys were the Lily Rays of their time, except bigger. But they were the jet setters. They were the ones who were traveling all over the world, speaking at conferences, working with the massive corporations, making some very serious money. Making serious money doing their own stuff too. But
but I
they
took
they
that.
would open
Oh, go ahead.
themselves up and they would give anybody their time, and that's the spirit of the industry that grew. And incidentally, that's the house that Danny Sullivan built, not the arrogant, ego driven, mad scientist sort of thing. That is a fiction.
Yeah, because here's more of what she writes. The more I thought about search engine optimization and how a bunch of megalomaniac jerks were degrading our collective sense of reality because they wanted to buy Lamborghinis and prove they could vanquish the almighty algorithm, which technically constitutes many algorithms, but we think of as a single force, the more I looked forward to going to Florida for this alligator party. Maybe I thought I would get to see someone who made millions clogging the internet with bullshit because of our censors online, get the ultimate comeuppance. Maybe an SEO professional would get attacked by a gigantic prehistoric looking reptile right there in front of me. Maybe I could even repackage such a tragedy into a sensationalized anecdote for a viral article about the people who do SEO for a living, strongly implying that nature was here to punish the bad guys while somehow also assuming the ethical high ground and pretending I hadn't been hoping the exact same thing would happen from the start. Because
You
I too
know,
use Google. I too want reliable and relevant things to come up when I look through the vast compendium of human knowledge, and I too enjoy the sweetest taste of revenge. This is the article. This is
I
the
mean, the
article.
sad thing is how she just shows her ignorance so thoroughly.
Yeah.
Lambos are so boring. I'll take an Aston Martin any day.
The
Good
truth though,
Lord.
like I said, affiliate marketing is different. That is. I went to several. I've talked at several conferences. There's a layer of that there. There's also a layer of just good people doing hard work. But
You
in the
know,
SEO industry, right now, I've had talked to 5 people this week who do regular SEO for companies and corporations who are deeply troubled about if they're going to be able to make their mortgage payment in 2 months.
yeah.
Right? I mean, this industry is not filled with people making millions of dollars every day. Now, there are people that do, and people who do affiliate marketing. I wish I had time to learn it because I probably wouldn't have to worry about working again. But I don't use my skills to get a Lamborghini. I drive a 20-year-old Hyundai Sonata because I drive them till they die and it has 222,000 miles on it, right? Because I haven't had a payment in 10 years, and that's important not to have that payment. But I take what I know, and today, after this, I'm going to finish up an audit for somebody who's lost 80% of their traffic. I found what I think is wrong with the site. I'm going to inform them of what that is. I'm going to walk them through how to fix it, and then I'm going to hold their hand while we wait to see if Google rewards them for it, and they get back their business. And my experience in SEO since I started, and I used to partner with Dave Davies, the old co-host for the show, we spent a lot of time rescuing businesses, rescuing websites. And then how she gets the SEO community so wrong. We had an SEO, now a lot of people knew of Dana Lipidu, who's passed away. She was paralyzed, and another SEO offered to go live with her and her husband. They were
He
very
didn't
good
just
friends.
offer, he actually did it.
No,
He
I'm
didn't
saying
just
offer. I was gonna
offer;
say,
he actually
well, no,
did it.
I didn't get to that part.
Yeah, well,
But he offered, and then they told him, yes, come and stay with us. He stayed with them to help her. We've had SEOs who've had mental health issues or financial issues. Where the minute we find out, someone puts up a GoFundMe. I even was a recipient of that. I had a cat who needed her third cancer surgery. I couldn't afford it, and one of our wonderful people, I won't say her name just because I don't know if she wants to be mentioned, but because she's not an SEO, but she's a wife of one. And she put up a GoFundMe and got me the money to get my cat her surgery. And she lived 3 more years. So that's the SEO industry. The one where we help each other, the one where we give each other information, and the one where I don't have anybody. I mean, there's a couple people maybe, but who here have you seen boast about buying a Lamborghini? Like,
oh,
even
you
I
know
know a
what?
guy who works for
Okay,
Ferrari. Ferrari only brags about getting to drive the ones Ferrari has. so,
for what
so
it's worth, there are different types of conferences and different types
yes, there
of
are.
brigadisho at different types of events. Hell, there's different levels of brigadisho depending on what time of evening you're at. Trust me, it gets thicker the later the evening goes.
And you do get some.
And
You
of
do get
course you get some,
some.
but here's the deal. Most SEOs are working independently. Most SEOs who speak at conferences are either independents or they're running a large corporate team. Either way, it's incredibly stressful, incredibly lonely. And all you really have, because you're selling something invisible, all you really have is this veneer you put in front of yourself that says, I'm the expert. And that veneer can shatter in a moment
Hmm.
with an unpredicted update or an update that Google might be giving hints about, but you predicted wrong. And that happens. It happens to every SEO. And if it doesn't happen, if you have a long career and it doesn't happen to you, then you're a unicorn. There are two types of SEOs: those who've been screwed up by an algorithm update, and those who are gonna get screwed up by an algorithm update. And that's okay. That's how the world goes. It's the best attempt service. We don't have a direct conduit to Google or Yahoo or Bing or to any of the search engines, unless of course you're Dwayne Forrester, who was also mentioned in the article. And even Dwayne doesn't. Even with Dwayne, there is a Great Wall of China in between what he does now and what the team at Bing lets him in on.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I do a lot of site recovery, so it's a little different for me. But I'm the one who sees what happens when Google updates run. And it's not as simple anymore. It's not like originally the updates were meant to stop the spam, which is what people in the early days did, because heck, why not? It was the early days of the internet, no people made money. But Google created algorithms to stop the spam. That's how they gained dominance over Yahoo. But uh, but now it's super complicated. And I have websites where they thought they did everything right and they created good content. And they even got like one has a golf site and they have an expert golf pro who writes for them, right? And they do reviews of golf clubs and balls and all that. It's all handwritten, legitimate, researched, and the expert writes his stuff. And they got annihilated by an algorithm. They did everything they thought they were supposed to do. They did everything they thought Google told them to do. So my job is to get in there and help them recover this so that they can go on and make money. I mean, this is what the guy put together to replace his work when his work went away during the pandemic. So a lot of times what I deal with are the results of Google algorithms, and they're not as straightforward as it seems. Oh, you just get hit because you're doing the wrong things. No, a lot of times sites get hit because they didn't know they were doing something wrong. Or there's a hidden, another site I'm going to turn over today. They did content optimization, fixed their content, put their content gaps, all that, did all that work. Nothing happened because they have a huge crawl problem that they didn't know they had. And as a technical SEO, I can find that. But this idea that you and I, Jim, are like making millions flooding the internet with junk. You know what I tell all my clients about AI content? Don't do it. Don't do it. Google's going to get smart enough to like not give you value for that content because it's regurgitating what's already out there. And we know part of the HCU speaks to that already. I'm like, get good writers, be different, be interesting, make it creative, make sure you have that human experience. That's what's important. I'm not out there like making millions off of spam in the web. Now, do I know people that were in affiliate marketing? Sure. I had a friend who had 50,000 websites, for gaming. And what did he do one night by accident, by the way? He accidentally put out the same 2 links to all 50,000 websites. Yeah.
Gee,
And
if only he had an SEO to tell him what's what, huh?
oh no, he was an SEO and a hacker and a really good affiliate marketer. He just made a mistake. He was tired and he
Hmm.
thought he put it out to one of the websites he had control of because he created a WordPress plugin. And the WordPress plugin gave him backdoors to all the websites, and it was a super popular WordPress plugin. And he couldn't disable it anymore because because other people made versions of it and he didn't have access to that part. So anyway, so he all 50,000 of his websites. These were his websites they had actually purchased. Went dead overnight. And he asked me and Dave to contact Matt Cutts. I was like, we can ask, but I don't think he's going to help you. And Matt just wrote back, ha 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 ha. Like, no, no, I can't do
And when
anything
you
for
guys
him.
figured it out, you understood what
Yeah,
Matt meant, right?
yes, yes, exactly. So
Okay.
it's like, yeah, so it's like, yeah, some people do make a lot of money, but that's also really hard work. People who
Well,
are really successful at affiliates are not sitting around and, drinking beers at alligator parties every night with Lamborghinis. Like, affiliate
and
marketing is
by the
tough,
way,
tough work.
if they are sitting around drinking beers at alligator parties with Lamborghinis, good for them.
Yeah, they've done a lot of work.
Like
I mean,
honestly, that's what they want to do. They're living their best lives. It ain't
yeah,
up to me or other people to judge. If that's what they do, heck, I wouldn't do that with my money. But if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Who am I to
yeah,
judge? You go live your best
exactly.
life for goodness sake. If that involves alligators and Lamborghinis, well, that's kind of weird, but good for you.
But but they are doing hard work. Like the one I told you about with the 50,000 sites. He had an affiliate site that ranked number 2 for Netflix, right? And he's making good bank off of it. Good site, lots of good traffic for Netflix because that was at the time Google got really strict on double showing sites in the search.
Hmm?
So he got like a 10% or something commission or $10 or something off of a subscription. Netflix.
So
Netflix took him
very good
out.
for him.
Well, it's good for Netflix too, right? Because they have 2 listings now, 1 and 2, and all they're getting all the traffic he's sending.
Mhm.
But but Netflix decided they didn't want him to be competing with them, so they took away his affiliate. And so overnight, he lost all that, all the work he put in to rank number 2 for Netflix. Holy cow,
Um,
right?
that
But
I
that's
wish
affiliate marketing. It's
they
not
would
a
be.
simple thing.
It would also be really cool if Ms. Chicago Lewis had kind of mentioned stuff like you. That's the thing about being an entrepreneur and being an entrepreneur and on the sort of the wild edge of what is still in many ways the Wild West. It could all vanish in a heartbeat. Like as you said, a mistake somebody made, probably the same 2 links to every one of 50,000 sites, or a shift in an algorithm. Um, and suddenly that can be vanished. A whole business model just disappears.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and that's the risk that entrepreneurs take. And so, how to say this? As they say, high risk, high reward. Nevertheless, no amount of spam could break or ruin the internet. The internet is, I mean, it's literally got unlimited space. Maybe it's harder to find exactly what you're looking for if you don't know how to look for it. Or maybe many people, I have a hard time saying this about Amanda Chicago Lewis because she is a remarkable writer.
he
But
is a very
maybe
good
a
writer.
lot of people just don't know how to, just don't understand information as well as they used to. You know how
Well,
they tell us we have to read between the lines?
yeah.
Many people are used to being spoon-fed information now. They don't know how to read between the lines. And so if there's, maybe there's 12 to 15 references to any given topic on a search results page, and 7 or 8 of them are dead accurate, and the other ones are kind of tangential, but maybe sort of accurate. If you don't know how to decipher information, how do you know? You know what I mean? And this is what Google's compiling now. They're giving people what they want. Um,
Well,
yeah,
I remember Eric Schmidt saying over a decade ago that they wanted to get to the point where they gave you information before you knew you needed it. which is what they're kind of trying to do. But I don't think it's, so this is where I agree with her. I don't think it's made search better. I searched last week for, and this is just an example of how bad it's been for me lately, and it may differ where you live, but I put in, I was looking for crime stats for my area, my apartment complex. And so I put in the address and crime stats, and I got 2 pages of apartment rentals in the area. No crime stats whatsoever. So lately it's been super amped up on like one part of the query and ignoring the rest of the query. So I'll put something in, and I'll get like that. Or the other thing I get is I'll get one good result and like RankBrain's amped up to 100, because then everything else is some random result that has nothing to do with what I'm searching for. And so Google search, since they started adding all this machine learning, and it's not been good. And Matt Cutts used to say, I will never put machine learning into the ranking signals or this, the things that are actively ranking pages, because if it breaks, we can't fix it. Well, I think it might be broken, and maybe it's just my experience where I live, maybe because maybe they're running experiments or tests, but it's been really, really bad. I've gone even to like just Facebook and asked a question because I can't find anything related to my, like, I'm not talking like the search results are a little off. I'm talking like completely irrelevant to what I'm searching for. So Google has had an issue, but it's not because SEOs, if anything, SEO has made Google better because Google knows about the issues from people that are trying to, spam the engine. And then they create algorithms that help clean that up. And
I probably wouldn't put it that way myself,
well,
but
what?
well,
I'm not saying that's
I'm not
intentional.
trying. I'm an SEO, and I'm not trying to spam the engine.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm
In
talking about the
fact,
affiliate marketer.
I'm
Sorry.
doing my very best to listen closely to what Google says.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yes,
believe Google is entirely transparent in every instruction, advisement, or hint that they give us, but I do think that Google has a standard of, well, it has different standards you can apply to a website or pages inside the website, from technical standards to the veracity, and for want of a better word, helpfulness of content. And if you meet those standards, again, Google might not spell it out for you quite clearly, but they're giving very, very broad hints. And if you can read them and follow them as closely as you can, I keep humble bragging that through all these updates, the websites I'm responsible for are doing quite well. Although I got to say, one of them I think has reached its plateau in the massive number of new impressions we gained. The last month we're plateauing out, which is, had to happen eventually.
That's normal.
It sucks, but it had to happen eventually. Anyway, I've been humble bragging about how my sites are doing just fine. And the reason they're doing just fine, I'm so convinced, is because I've spent the last year and a half preparing for what happened in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I know people are probably think I'm lying, but I've never had a site hit by an update that I worked on. Like, I've recovered sites, and only because I'm like, in the article, she's like, people love to think they got away with them. I don't. I actually get more thrill out of knowing how the algorithms work and figuring out which levers work inside of Google's systems and what's acceptable practices, and watching it go up. Like years ago when we had page speed, not CWVs, lots of SEOs are like, it's just a tiebreaker, so it doesn't matter. And I was like, no, my sites, it's mattering. Why is it mattering? I had a site that went up 250,000 visits in one day from an update for page speed. And I found out later and got confirmed from John that it was because page speed was applied at the query level. And this was a site that got 30 million visits a month. So at the query level, when we improved their page speed, which is the only thing we improved, we improved the page speed from like 10-second loads to 2-second loads. They got a lot bigger. They got bigger jumps on the query level, which means they had hundreds of thousands of queries. So they were able to get massive traffic jumps, right? I get a thrill out of walking in one morning and seeing that little graph that we look at for traffic in GSC, and the hockey stick goes straight up. Like, that's what makes me happy. Not getting away with something around Google, because I know that's temporary. Like, I sometimes feel like I'm a boring SEO because, like you do, I just follow the ranking systems. Google now actually lists them online. That's a new thing. And I try to know as much as I can about it by reading, by watching what John and Danny say, by reading in between the lines, knowing how they speak, knowing what they're really saying, what they're not really saying, and then making my sites adhere to that. And then my sites do really, really well, 99% of the time. There's one that seems stuck right now. I don't know why it's stuck. So we'll see if it's just because Google's putting out Project Gemini. But generally speaking, I do like you do. I try to make the site the best site. I try to make it adhere to the best practices that Google and users want, because also you want to make sure you're optimizing for users. But yeah, so I'm not like going, hey, what can I get away with today? I don't want to have 50,000 sites that can go away in one day because I made a mistake, right? That was a lot of money. Those 50,000 sites that they purchase. So yeah, I'm exactly like you, and I think Google does reward that. Unfortunately, I do think they're getting a little more black boxy lately. Like the whole thing with just write good content, that's all you need to do. It's just so not true. There's so many details in that just write good content. I have a site right now that gets 50 visits a day because I did a whole site of good content, but didn't use one keyword anyone's searching for related to what they do. They made up their own
Well,
term.
but then that is not good content.
Well,
You
it's
can't
good
make up your own
content.
term. It's good whatchamajigget.
It's good
I just made up
content.
my no. I just good whatchamajigget. I just made up my
It's
own
not a
term.
made up word. It's a made up word for what it is.
I just
I should say it's a
it's
real word.
whatchamajigget. I just made up my own term. No one's searching for whatchamajigget, so they won't know what I just said about content because I called it whatchamajigget. It's not good
Right,
content.
but I'm saying if you're branding something, I had a $2 billion e-commerce company do this. They branded something and they ranked number one for the product, and they changed the name of the page and took the word off because they're branding it, and it dropped completely out. We're like, why did we drop out? Well, because the word no longer exists on the page. So
Well, if you want, yeah, if you want to, how to say this, the Google and your placement in Google is like the proverbial oil tanker. You can change everything on a website on a dime. It's really easy. All you have to do is rewrite it and upload it. Boom, it's changed. But then the sorting engines, Google, DuckDuckGo, Bing, now Yahoo is with an independent crawler and such. Uh, 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 they're going to take a while to suss out what you mean, and that word A now is been replaced by phrase D. You got to ease the engines into that sort of thing. You can't just
yeah,
change reality and expect everybody to believe that the new reality is the reality just because you say it is.
exactly,
Reality don't work
exactly.
that way, really.
Exactly. But getting back to like what she wrote, I mean, what she wrote was about affiliate marketing 20 years ago, before Google was even much of a thing or a thing at all, where people were exploiting an easy to game set of algorithms to make money. And why shouldn't they? I'm envious of what people did in the early days. I
It's,
wish I could have done that.
this is what bugs me. I agree with you. She wrote about an age that doesn't exist anymore and practices that. This is 2023. Her and her editor have access to Danny Sullivan. They have
Yeah.
access
Matt
to Barry
Cutts.
Schwartz, to Matt Cutts. They have access to Dwayne Forster. Um, these are all people who, well, they've all been around for a very long time. They're all pretty hip to new search. I mean, Matt may be out of the game and has been out of the game for a decade, but I'm pretty sure he's hip to what's going on at Google. I'm sure he cares at any rate. But this is 2023. It's so easy to access 2023. I mean, it's often very unpleasant to access 2023, certainly, but it's easy to access because, I don't know, we have search engines that are very accurate, even if they aren't necessarily giving you, what you want. If you're trying to access contemporary information, it's there. Now, for what she did speak with Lily Ray. And Lily Ray had a lot of really good things to say, but they were in one teeny little paragraph. Like smushed real small. And I don't think that a more reasonable and very contemporary view of what search engine optimization, especially from an agency client services side, which Lee Ray represents. Like, I don't. I mean, they even made up a weird thing about her changing her name to be more like her great uncle Man Ray's, which, according to Lily, she didn't actually do. That's just her name, you know.
Yeah.
Like, even when they had somebody giving them pretty good factual information about contemporary SEO, I think the Verve article and the author just gave into the temptation to throw in something, um, a seed of doubt sort of thing. And there was no reason to do that,
Well,
except this
yeah.
is the way the article has to go.
Well, yeah, because you can tell by the way she writes the article. When she went to this party, she already had a preconceived notion. I read that in the beginning of what we're talking about today, right? Then what we were, and then she looked to validate that. I mean, two of the people mentioned, no of us, I don't know anybody who's heard of them. And there's a Manstead or Man, I don't can't think of the name. So they're probably big in like affiliates or something. But this is a very tight knit industry, and I'd like to say two things. One, my comment, if you read it on Medium, was totally about all the good things that have happened as a result of it being a tight knit industry. Also, I want to say this, I want to give credit because you're one of the first people I met in search, right? And in the early days in the industry, there were not many women. And she mentions this in here. Missy Ward talked about being one woman in, a sea of many. I had doors open for me without anybody telling me they did it or asking me
Mm-hmm.
or taking credit. And it was all men's pretty much. So it was men that were doing this, right? And I remember one time tweeting um, at sorry, SES, old conference that's not around anymore. Matt McGowan was tweeting that they had free tickets, and if you won the tweet, you get tickets to the conference. So I tweeted, "Hey, I'd be really interested." He DMs me. I didn't know Matt. I think I don't even think I was writing for Search Engine Watch yet. But I met him once or twice, but I didn't know him. And he writes back, "You're the kind of person you want to have at the conference. You are covered." There was no way at that time I could have afforded to pay for that conference. And that was one of the ones where you and I hung out at the dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and you told me if that you're going to introduce me to all these people, and the one thing you'd ask from me is to bring good people into the industry. So it was an industry that was so accepting and so open. And don't get me wrong, of course, there's always issues with sexism and stuff like that because every industry has that. But mostly, it was very open to making sure that doors were open for me
For
and
what
that
it's
I get to meet the people that I needed to meet. And I really think that is an amazing thing about the early days of this industry.
for what it's worth, and I want to do some name dropping here because there's some really important people in the early days of the industry. I'm talking like Barbara Cole, Jill Whalen,
Sure.
Kristine Churchill, Deborah Mustaller, um, uh, 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 Jessica Bowman.
I
There was
didn't know
an
any of them though.
Yep.
No.
Cindy Crum came in probably about a year and a half, 2 years before you did, and started popularizing mobile. Almost immediately, she saw that niche and was like, "Yes, that's mine. I'm getting that." And there were many of the early days of SEO. And if she wants to write an article on the early days of SEO, there actually were a lot of women involved, but as almost always, men took the conversation. Um,
No,
that's just
I would
how
say
we
back
are.
in the early days, there were not many women. There were like
Um,
I could probably name 20 I knew about.
Relative
Like,
to other parts of the
yeah.
tech industry, SEO was very, very open. The
Oh, you're
tech
very
industry
open.
has
Don't be wrong. We're
traditionally been the
talking
sausage factory.
we're talking 2006, 2007. So women hadn't found it yet. I'm just saying you're open, totally open. I'm just saying that
Well,
at the time
and
she
not
paints a picture in the article like it was just male dominated and
and again,
women weren't welcome and women
that's
were
wrong
very
because
welcome.
we
Yeah.
had people like Kristine, we had people like Jill, we had people like Jessica, and they were not just shattering glass ceilings. That ceiling didn't really exist in search. It's just there weren't a lot of women at the high end of the tech industry, and that's because tech is very exclusionary. But I wouldn't say SEO was. I never, I've been around since the beginning, and I never got that sense.
No, they weren't. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm
Oh
trying
no,
to
no,
say
no,
that
yeah, but she,
there weren't a lot
ah,
of women to meet. I did not meet a lot of women, but I do know that men opened the doors. Like Matt had me come to the conference and paid my ticket. I barely knew who he was. I know that I got asked to watch for a search to write for Search Engine Watch, probably because of Matthew and Jonathan Allen. So people like that. So I'm not saying that women weren't there. There weren't a lot of them, and I didn't meet them, and they weren't at the conferences I went to. So I only met a very, very few women.
you know,
But I'm just trying to say that the industry was very open, and the picture she painted of it being just like some masculine dominated, sausage fest that didn't care about anything but, rah rah brohood is just not how it was. It was very open. I was very welcomed into every circle.
well, I mean, don't
So
forget, we also love our alligators and Lambos. Like
we
this,
do.
we do.
My Hyundai Sonata Lambo outside with the broken headlight.
Now, speaking of animals and tech, and this article has gotten a lot of us talking. It's gonna in many ways. I think this article might help the inside of the SEO industry because it's gonna get us to all talk with each other and circle our wagons and all that stuff. But some good stuff has to come out of everything, including dreadfully bad articles. And one of the good things is Bill Hartzer
Yes.
has created the "I ruined the internet" T-shirt.
I'm an
Um,
SEO.
SEO, I ruined the internet T-shirt, and $1 from he's selling them for $25. Cost of manufacturing, basically. No one's making any money on
Yeah,
this.
and he's not even making any money off it. The guy who set it up for him that he knows on the website and uploaded the art, and so there's no money being
This
made.
25 bucks a shirt. I mean, these days you're not making any
Yeah,
money, but $1 from every shirt that gets sold is going to Anton Schuke has a fund that he's been really raising money through Buy Me a Coffee, helping animals who got left behind when
or
people had to flee Russian occupation in Ukraine.
yeah. For those that don't know, Anton lived in Kiev, and he had to flee with his wife and daughter and their cat because they were getting a little scared of the bombing. It was getting too close, and so a lot of the animals that were left behind also don't have. Not only did their people have to flee and couldn't take them, but also they died. They were killed in the bombings. And so Anton started this fund to help the people because it's not just rescues. It's just like people found 30 cats still living around them in their apartments and took them in and started feeding them and getting them veterinary care. And so he's been sending money back to Ukraine. 100% of the proceeds go back to Ukraine, and they go back to help the people that are taking care of these animals. And you can either do a one-time donation on the Buy Me a Coffee site, or I think it's on my LinkedIn. It's on my LinkedIn today. And then you can also do a monthly membership, or you can buy a T-shirt, and $1 of that will go to Anton.
There you go. So,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, hey, Verge, something else the SEO world's doing. It'd be nice to see you guys jump in on that too.
Can I say one last thing though about the Verge? Just want to say I'm really disappointed. Is that I read the Verge all the time. We actually take articles from the Verge and
Yeah,
report
I
on them.
like
The
the
reporting
Verge.
is the reporting is normally very good. That they publish this article means you and I both write. That had to go through the editorial
Mhm.
review. I have had articles denied when I was publishing because it just wasn't maybe appropriate, or they thought maybe it was too much. How it got through their editorial, but then also how a comment got my comment. I don't care if it's my comment, but just that the comment got removed because I called them out for being clickbait and not good journalism. It's like, guys, if you don't write a good piece, I know when I've written, sometimes they weren't spot on, and I took the criticism and made myself better the next time I wrote an article. But when you write one that's so factually erroneous, so the logic doesn't even add up because you're talking about tactics and people from 20 years ago, how they ruined the search engine, and nothing about how Google may be ruining its own search engine. That it was such a biased,
Yeah.
negative, attack-oriented piece. How the Verge published that is just disappointing.
Again, I got this feeling that some people had an agenda and wanted this to happen.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
I think listeners might want to do their own back research into articles that have been through the Verve about Google I bet you the Verve lost a whole bunch of money to Google one day. To Google algorithm
Well,
update. I'll bet you.
somebody published their graph for traffic, and let's just say is looking a little like downhill skiing. so, so that could be true. They might have. It looked like they might have been hit by an update in 2020 or 2022.
Well, you know what? Here's some hope for the Verge. Everything can turn around.
Yes.
Google made a mistake in the core update. They found a bug, and it turns out that the bug was in Discover. So I guess they ran the core update again, or part of the core update again, after fixing the bug. And Verge or other publications, if you notice a massive uptick in Discover traffic, that may be the reason.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, your discovered traffic is affected the same as your organic traffic from updates and devaluations. So if you go down in organic and you see it down in Discover, that's because your site health score over to Discover, and also to your ads, you'll pay more for ads if you have problems. So
We have got to move really quickly. We spent most of the show talking about that
we
article, but it was
did,
a
but we
fun
had
conversation.
to.
I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun, but we got to get
We
through
had
a
to.
whole bunch of stuff.
Sure.
Um, Time and time zone inclusion for the structured data that goes with Google Video. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a little odd to me because what this is actually important if you want to have your video crawled and indexed and ranked.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to put times in. I don't know what the times are for. Like when I publish a video, does it
This is their
matter
way
what
of trying.
time
This is
I
their way of
publish?
trying to deal with fakes. This is honestly, that's what they're trying to do here.
Oh, okay. I didn't think of that. That
Now,
definitely
will
could
this
be.
work or not?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think
Yeah.
this is the first step in trying to weed out fakes.
That definitely could be. So if you want your videos crawled and indexed, you're going to have to make sure you put in this new. I don't. Well, is it new or is it just they're paying attention to it
Well,
now? I have to double check.
it's not a new thing, but it's a new demand.
Well, they have a new like they have a new thing. I think they have a new attribute is what it is. So the time isn't new, but I think one of the attributes is new. And I cannot find my article to double check, unfortunately.
Okay, well,
So
that's out there.
yeah, it's up. Yeah, so it's really important if you want your videos to rank, you have to make sure you put in the structured data.
Okay. After 7 years and much hype, including the hype that they actually finished back in May, as it turns
Mm.
out, Google has just finished running the mobile first. So it's done.
Yeah, and so what took so long is, in my opinion, also from what they've said to us, is your mobile site had to be comparable to your desktop because they won't index things that are only on your desktop, not on your mobile. So they wanted to make sure because that was with a site that didn't get moved over until 2020. 2020, and that was because, and I asked John, he said because it's not comparable, it has to be comparable, and it has to be really close. There are still sites that don't have a mobile version, are not mobile friendly. They're going to try to index those with the desktop crawler, but if your site is not mobile friendly, and I have seen sites recently like this, and sites that don't have small traffic either, make sure you get it mobile ready. Like go ahead and
why wouldn't you? And
yeah.
take a look at go to Google Analytics GA4, and look at there's a demographics tab, and look at the technologies that are being used to look at your website. Now, in B2B, it's still in some sectors, it's still very desktop heavy over mobile, but you will be surprised how many people are looking at your business website and your B2B focused website. You're selling widgets to industrial widgets. Your buyers are increasingly accessing via their mobile phones.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't have it, what they're going to do is, if it doesn't load on mobile, they can't do anything about making you mobile first, which is where most of your ranking signals come from. And they'll continue to try to crawl you with the legacy desktop Googlebot crawler, but it's only going to be a few times a year. And they want to reduce using that legacy crawler as much as possible. So get yourself on a mobile site. Make sure it works in mobile.
I got a client that does industrial fabrication. They make really, really big units for prefab houses. Okay, I mean, it's boring. A total niche industry. If unless you're interested in this, you're probably not interested in this. And it was entirely desktop when I started working with them. Something like 4 or 5 years ago, when Brand Labs picked up this client, it was entirely desktop. And I'm telling you, over the last few years, the share of mobile traffic It's not over 50%. It's still mostly desktop, but we're looking at like in the 30-35% range. And I think it's because a generation of people who had primary access to smartphones are now getting out of college and getting into the workforce.
That makes sense. And also, I mean, most people shop at work, so
Well, indeed. But again, I'm talking just like this is a website that should not get a lot of mobile traffic. This is
that's true.
hardcore
Yeah,
industrial.
yeah, you're right.
You're
Yeah, you're
sitting
right.
at a desk when you're looking for these products, but apparently you're not. Maybe you're sitting in your pickup truck
Yeah, possibly. I
on the
mean,
job site saying,
everyone.
my
Yeah,
foreman said I needed to get this, and this, so I got to get this. You're not at a desk. You're in the cab of your truck, thumbing it away, running your business.
yeah, that's a good point. It definitely could be because you're remote on site all the time. You're not sitting in front of your laptop. So
No, so I get a lot of resistance from some clients. We don't want to do this. And that's because they themselves don't do it. But it doesn't mean your clients aren't doing it.
no, and it's also, I mean, my dad does is in a business that there's only like six of them in the country,
Hmm.
and he had a really old, awful website, and I refabbed it for him and put it up, and it's not getting a ton of traffic because they don't usually find you that way. But you know what they do that way? They check on you. They see what your online presence looks like. So he does get mobile visits, right? Because someone's just looking him up on the mobile phone, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times people assume that just because you're in B2B and you don't have a lot of competition and you don't get most of your business that way, that you don't need to do these things, but you really do because people use it as a sign of trust
Yep.
in your abilities. Yeah.
Well, and you know who else uses it as a sign of trust? Google uses it as a sign of trust.
This is true. This is true.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So here's from the I can't believe they have to write this, but they have to write. And this one goes to Danny Sullivan. So, he must have been, very condescending in his reply, which I don't think he was.
And
Um,
pissed and angry.
and pissed and angry. Yeah, Danny Sullivan in a pissed and angry tone said, "Schema doesn't make you rank better." Okay, so just to reiterate, schema does not make you rank better, but it does make you rank prettier.
Prettier.
Well, I mean, like seriously, you can have a straight blue link and a nice meta description, or you can have a straight blue link, nice meta description, and a video result. A straight blue link, a nice meta
This is
description,
true.
and product snippets. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff Schema will give you that makes you look much cooler than the competition that only has the straight blue link and a nice meta description.
This is true. And also, you're giving information to Google. I do this in my talks. You're telling Google specifically what that's about, so I don't have to guess.
Yeah.
If it's like, this is an article, this is a recipe, here's the time of the recipe, here are the ingredients, it doesn't have to guess. And so it knows. And then it can do a much better, it has much better ability to return you in a query because I already know what that part of the page is about.
And again, if you use the right schemas, and there's a bunch of different schema that does different things, you're more eye-catching, and maybe you're giving the person information before your competition's giving information. For instance, price. You can put pricing schema, and that will appear in a search result. Reviews. Google loves putting star reviews underneath a search result. If you got 5 stars and your competition got 4.5 stars, you got yourself a click.
Yeah, that's very true. And what it adds is these are basically the schema that lets you be available for rich snippets. So that's where they add in things like the stars and the pictures and UN products and things like that.
But again, this will not help you rank better.
No.
It might get you ranked more frequently and in different places, but search isn't about ranking. That's what people think it's, well, it's got to be number one. It's about placement and prominence, getting noticed. That's what SEO is about.
Yeah, soon the SGE box came back today. Yeah, I know you don't get the SG, so I'm just letting you know. The SGE box came back in its full expanded form today. So if you're number one in the blue links, you might be, 1,000 pixels down the page. So it's not the only thing. Visibility is the big thing. Visibility everywhere.
Yeah, well, no, that was the proximity part. Prominence. Sorry, proximity of prominence. That was the prominence part.
I like that. Proximity of prominence.
Okay, what else do we got? I think we have time for like one more story, and then we are going to get ourselves kicked out of the studio because there's another coming up right on behind us. where do you want to go? We got one more.
Where'd it go? I'm just looking. We do have to cover AI regulation. We do that next week. That's not going away. It's not going anywhere. I would say that just so people know, because some people in our industry use it, Twitter circles are going away. And I believe I saw this two places, but I couldn't confirm totally that they may make it public, whatever you posted in there. So you may want to verify that. And if you posted things you don't want people to see, then you might want to go ahead and have them delete those. But the Twitter circles are going away. They're taking those out. Oh, and one last thing real quick. LinkedIn, probably my least favorite platform just because it's not really very authentic most of the time. But they have 1 billion served now, like McDonald's used to say, 1 billion served.
Well, congratulations, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You know what? Hey, LinkedIn, if you really want to promote this, I can create a whole bunch of content for you.
They also are adding an AI job coaching tool that will help you locate jobs, better your profile, resume, things like that, for submitting for jobs, which could be helpful because a lot of times when you submit, very, very qualified people submit, they just don't reach the right keywords that the optical scanner or the program that they're using to scan your resume are going to use, depending on how you're submitting your resume, usually online. So you don't get to move to the top of the pile because you didn't know you missed something. So the AI coach is going to help you discover when you might be missing things.
People who ruin job listings.
Love the word.
SEOs, the people who ruin job listings.
I ruin the internet.
Okay, well, in the most ruinous way possible. But when we're done ruining the internet, we need an exit strategy, eh? I think I'm going to go back to I don't know, direct mail marketing or something and try to ruin the post office.
That's what we could do. We'll be our evil pirates with our content goblins by our side and our alligators with their taped snouts.
But only the ones in Florida who have sailboats who can actually pull it off. I'm talking to you, Todd Malacott. Only the ones who can actually pull it off. He has several boats. He has a little fleet, does he not?
Can we say the people that really made millions back then, most of them are not in the industry anymore because they made millions back then. So.
Yeah, what do you think they're doing? Playing with a keyboard, for goodness sake. Okay, on behalf of Kristine Schachinger, who is busying herself ruining the internet, yes. This is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media. Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls, who's busy ruining the internet. This is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media, who is also busy ruining the internet. You've been listening to Webcology on WMR.fm. Special thanks to our sponsor, Audience Key, and special thanks to Darren, who incidentally contributed greatly to ruining the internet, and Brandy, who herself has worked really hard on ruining the internet. Be well, rank well, be kind to each other, ruin the internet. And if there is an internet left, we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.